The mountain dogs were ready to chase us. They had no idea that we would try and attack them instead. Rena is always the first one to make a move in this kind of situation. She gets so determined once a decision is made. She immediately singled out one dog and punched him in the nose. Okay. Another one tried to grab her from behind, but Keiichi kicked him in the side as hard as he could.
Oi, oi, Rena! やり合うときは背中を気にしろよ。
ケイイチ君に任せるよ。よろしくね。レナさんの茨城時代ってめちゃくちゃ興味あります。というか、人殴るのに躊躇なさすぎ。スタンガン使うのに躊躇ないあんたが言わない。
Given that Shion had that stun gun, the mountain dogs were reluctant to go after her. They were scared of the very dangerous weapon she had in her hand. But thanks to that, Shion had stopped one of them for certain. It was fortunate for us that they didn't have any guns on their own. They had no way of countering Shion's stun gun. It is a powerfully modified stun gun. Satoko attacked him from behind. She encircled his neck with a jump rope and pulled. Shion followed up, quickly hitting him with her stun gun. Damn! What was I doing during all that? The only thing I can do is run around and try to get their attention. They're pursuing me after all. They want to catch me more than anything else. But that leaves them open to attacks from my friends. Keiichi had already hit the one trying to grab me. I think we have a chance here. We may not be able to take all of them down, but we can try and find a chance to escape to their vehicle.
リカちゃんから話を聞いていたとき、とんでもねえ奴らだとビビっていたが、どうやら俺たちと同等程度みたいじゃないか。
I mean, so far they suck. Jesus. I thinking them as like highly trained soldiers, you know. But Jesus.
みーちゃんの部活メンバーはつまりそのくらい強いってことなんだね。恐れないというのが多分強さの秘密ですね。お姉の部活は遠慮ってやつをなくす訓練みたいなもんですから。
If we all fight together, we can win this 6-on-6 battle. If any one of us wasn't here, they'd beat us easily. We'd end up dead. If my friends hadn't stayed behind, I would have been killed by now. We can do it. We can make it. The dogs Shion took down with her stun gun were starting to wake up. The ones that we knocked out earlier were also up and chasing us again. We have to get out of here. This isn't time for me to just be running around.
ちょうどいいわね。やってやるわ。リカ。羽生、あなたは相変わらず諦めてるんでしょ。諦めない悪あがきがどれだけの力を持つか、そこで見てなさい。私は打ち破る。私たちは打ち破る。今からね。それをあなたの目の前で見せてあげる。よし、みんないいね。一撃で決めるよ。目の前の敵を一人撃ち倒せ。それから車を奪って逃げる。はいです。僕もやりますですよ。
気に入ったぜ、リカちゃん。よっしゃ、行くぞー。
On Keiichi's signal, we attacked 6 of them on dogs in unison. Time gradually slowed down. I truly felt like I was trying to overcome that impossible wall of time and change my fate. However, time continued to slow even further, until it stopped. What's going on? Felt like the film reel of a movie had gotten hung up partway through. Like time itself has come to a standstill.
羽生、どういうこと？その時が来たのです。どうして？
Wearing a sad expression, Hanyo pointed at Keiichi. Finally noticed something. All my friends had noticed already, except for Keiichi.
ケイイチ、その胸の前に浮いているのは何ですか？
Oh god. Don't tell me it's a bullet. It's a sniper bullet, isn't it?
何ってなんだよ。あ？これなんだよ。
Time had stopped. Just when Keiichi was about to hit his opponent, he then realized that something was floating in front of his heart. It was a metallic silver cone. That was the first thing I could think of.
嘘、ケイちゃん。
なんだよこれ。まさか銃弾？
That's exactly what it was. The bullet had stopped about 15 centimeters away from Keiichi's chest, just before it would enter his body. That's right. Once time starts moving again, it will slam into his chest. In other words, it's too late. Keiichi will immediately die when time starts up again.
誰が撃ったの？だって相手は6人、誰も銃なんか持ってないよ。あそこ、ワゴン車のところですわ。
Satoko couldn't point at the van. Time had completely stopped after all. But why is this happening though? How come time had stopped? Well, I guess one could say that it is very unfortunate that time had stopped, so that we can at least process this a little bit more before, you know, Keiichi possibly kicks the bucket. But why is this happening though? Is this something that always happens when Rika dies? We could see another person standing near the van. There had actually been 7 people inside, not 6. That 7th person was the one who fired the bullet. We hadn't seen her at all. That person is someone we all know very well. I guess she is doing it personally. Yes, it's Takano.
高野さんだ。高野さんが撃ったの？ケイイチ君は？
In the frozen world, Takano was smiling, still aiming her gun at Keiichi. Takano had been watching us from the van this whole time. She came out and fired her gun, knowing that we hadn't seen her at all.
そっか、なるほどな。やっぱり黒幕は高野さんだったんだな。
どうしよう。ケイちゃん、なんとか体をひねってかわせないんですか？
バカ、無理。弾丸だって止まるくらいに全てが止まってるんだぞ。俺だって動けるわけがねえだろ。
Yeah, and sadly, Keiichi is definitely no superhero speedster, that's for sure, to go fast and avoid the bullet.
なら時間が動き出すのと一緒に上半身をそらすんですの。そうすれば少しでも違うかもしれませんわよ。
Yeah, true. 1 centimeter in a specific direction can make the difference between life and death. Everyone was desperate to save Keiichi. However, no matter how hard we fought, we couldn't come up with any ideas to save him from the bullet. We were so desperate that Keiichi started to laugh.
なんかよくわからないけどさ。とにかくこうなっちまったものは仕方がない。時間が動き出せば俺は死ぬだろう。死ななくても、まあ少なくとも戦力にはならなくなるな。だからみんな今のうちに俺のことを諦めろ。そして目の前の敵と高野さんをぶちのめして車を奪うことを考えるんだ。
嫌です。ケイイチが死んでもダメです。そんな世界は嫌なのです。羽生、これが運命だというの？ 避けられない運命だというの。大丈夫ですよ、リカ。忘れられます。忘れられますから。
Hanyu, we have to remember this, though. We have to.
嘘だよ、嘘だ。ケイちゃんがこのまま死んじゃうなんて。やめなよ、みーちゃん。とにかく目の前の相手を倒すことに集中しよう。倒れるケイイチ君に振り返る時間をきっとケイイチ君は望まない。
ああ、そうだぜ、レナ。頼むぞ、みんな。リカちゃんを。まずはこの場を逃げ延びて、監督に連絡を取れ。多分、こいつらは大石さんをもう殺してる。だからあれだけ待っても来なかったんだ。みんな、生き延びろよ。絶対だ。
We have to make Rika survive as much as possible.
リカちゃん、最後の最後にごめんな。運命なんて覆せるって大見え切っておきながら最初にリタイアしちまう。
He sounded just like Takano's regular laughter, but it was the scariest noise I'd ever heard.
根性の名残は尽きた？
高野さん、これで俺たちが負けたと思うなよ。
見終わったのね、走馬灯。
The silence suddenly ended, and clamor of reality returned. An explosive sound then hit Keiichi straight in the chest. I watched Keiichi collapse right in front of me. He fell down on his back while his blood splattered everywhere. And after that, he stopped moving. There's no way any of us weren't shocked by that. We tried to take down the foes in front of us, but more came from behind. We tried to struggle as best as we could, but there was no way we could win against all those adults. I did my best to fight them off, but they pulled my hair and picked me up as if I weighed nothing. I heard everyone's desperate screams of resistance. The comforting and courageous unity we showed right before Keiichi was shot shattered like glass. The debris of that glass lay sadly on the ground. Takano's annoying laughter was still echoing inside my ears.
高野より本部へ。制圧したわ。私の言ったものを準備させて。それから死体がたくさん出るから処分の手配を。死体袋が5つと血を流すのに水がいるわね。持ってこさせて。
She needs 5 bags? My body froze up, but time did not. Takano, laughing, pointed a gun at Mion's head.
嘘でしょ。
あなたの背中の入れ墨、一度見てみたかったの。後で見せてもらうわね。
見たければ勝手に見ればいいでしょ。見たってつまらないよ。
そう？私は楽しいと思うわよ。
やめて、みーちゃんを撃たないで。
Takano shook her head in response to Rena's scream.
ダメよ。ミオンちゃんが部長さんなんだから一番じゃなきゃね。
嘘。やめ。
There was a dull noise, followed by Mion's body twitching. We all tried to break free from the men restraining us as Takano calmly shot Mion. However, they were too strong, and all we could do was squirm like insects. Takano was enjoying watching us struggle. She then stepped towards Satoko, but Shion started screaming curses at her.
あなたが先に撃たれたいのかしら？おとなしくしてればもう数秒は余計に生きられたのに。
やめてシオンさん。挑発なんかしても意味がありませんでしたよ。
I know why she's doing that. Shion wants to protect Satoko for as long as she can. She's trying to do what Satoshi told her to. Takano didn't care one whit for Shion's feelings. Stepping over Keiichi's body, she approached Shion.
私、サトシ君をあんたが殺したんですね。そうなんでしょ。
あいにくね、メイドの土産って嫌いなの。だから教えてあげないわ。
Shion's body twitched. That followed the dull sound of another gunshot. Just two of those sounds had stolen away the liveliest Sonozaki sisters. It didn't add up. I started shaking from here when it hit me just how easily Takano can take away lives.
無抵抗の人を撃って楽しいの？この人でなし！
あら、次はあなたが撃たれたいの？黙ってれば最後の順番になったのに。
Keiichi, Mion, and Shion died. The oldest one of us left was Rena. Rena didn't want to see Satoko and me die before she did.
連続開始事件は全部高野さんの仕業だったんですね。お社様のたたりの代行者のつもりだったんですか？
代行者じゃないわ。私がたたりを下すのよ。あなたには見せられないわね。お社様の怒りがこれからこの村に下るのは、それは私が起こす。私のたたり。そう。私はまさにお社様そのものになるのよ。その時、私は人としての域をようやく超えることができるの。まあ、あなたには私の気持ちはわからないでしょうね。人を超えて神になろうとする心地よさなど、誰にも理解できないわよ。
無理だと思うな。高野さんがどれだけお社様のふりをしたって、お社様にはなれないよ。所詮はごっこ遊び。お社様になんか、あなたはなれない。
なれるわよ。これからなるもの。
Rena laughed at her. Takano seemed very upset to hear that laugh.
何がおかしいのかしら。
無理だよ。だってお社様はいるんだもの。
Those were Rena's last words.
さて、最後はさとこちゃんね。あなたは殺しても殺さなくてもどうでもいいの。でもあなたは生きた研究資料だからね。東京はあなたの生きたままの捕獲に懸賞金をつけてくれてるわ。大した額じゃない。私の取り分はせいぜいヨーロッパに旅行に行ったら消える程度よ。まあ生け捕りにしてもあなたは結局はろくな目に遭わないけどね。生きたまま頭蓋を切開されるのが関の山よ。それに私、あなたとはお友達だったしね。この場で撃ち殺してあげるのも優しさかと思ってる。どっちがいい？
そんなの決められるわけないでございますわよ。
Satoko shouted back at her. Her eyes were full of tears.
じゃあクイズ。ブロッコリーとカリフラワー、緑色はどっち？
いえ、ブロッコリー。
That is sick. Pow. As soon as I heard that same dull sound, Satoko stopped moving. Takano smiled and said, "Good girl," to what used to be Satoko.
本当に今夜は月の綺麗な素敵な夜だこと。ね、あなたもそう思わない？
そして私を殺すのね。
ええ、殺すわ。女王感染者の死体が作戦の鍵なの。あなたはここから遠く離れた東京の地での醜い政治的勢力争いの具になるのよ。そして鬼ヶ淵村の伝説のピリオドとなる。
私をどういう殺し方にするか、高野の考えそうなことが
あら、わかるの？言ってみて。
I'm not going to say it, but I know. It's Watanagashi. She wants to do the real Watanagashi, using my body. I'm sure she's planning to cut open my stomach and pull out my guts. To do that, she'll make me inhale some chemical to put me to sleep. I vaguely remember that part. You do?
想像がついてるようね。じゃあ、おやすみなさい、リカちゃん。
One of the dogs approached me with a handkerchief soaked in chemical substance.
高野、待ちなさい。
みんな潔く死んだのに、あなたは命乞いなの？
違うわ。私を殺すなら眠らさずに殺しなさい。
Takano hadn't expected to hear that. Still, even though she was surprised, she nodded with a slight smile. Hanyu was also surprised to hear that. It would obviously be a terrible way to die.
どういうつもり？楽に死ぬ気がないの？辛いわよ。生きたまま腹を裂かれるのは
忘れないためよ。
Yes, I'm doing this so I'll remember. I'm not going to forget about it.
あなたが私の腹を裂くの。私は魂に刻みつける。それを私は絶対に忘れない。あなたに再び会った時、あなたが敵であることを思い出すために。
何を企んでるやら。でもあなたは他の子たちよりは少しは賢明みたいね。1秒でも長生きすれば悲鳴を上げるくらいのチャンスはあるかもしれないからね。でもそうはさせないわ。
They forced something other than the handkerchief inside of my mouth. It was a gag. With that in, I couldn't close my mouth, leading my saliva to start overflowing. Soon, another van arrived. More mountain dogs came out of it. They had probably come to get rid of the bodies. They grabbed the corpses of my friends and stuffed them into body bags. After that, they sprayed a bunch of water on the ground to clean up the blood. They asked Takano how many shots she fired, and started looking around for the bullets. They were erasing all the evidence. By the time the night was over, there would be no more proof left. They pulled my hands behind my back and bound them with handcuffs. My ankles were tied up too. They also tied my ankles and wrists together. My body was bent like a shrimp, and I was no longer able to walk. My mouth was covered, so I couldn't even talk. I couldn't move, talk, or express myself in any other way. They had taken away everything that made me human. Therefore, I wasn't human anymore. I was just a toy named Rikafure, a toy to give Takano joy. The car started moving. It seemed like we were going back the way we came, but I didn't care anymore. As the time of my death approached, some of my forgotten memories came back to me. That's right. I was killed like this so many times. Every time I repeated my life, Takano got pleasure out of killing me. Somebody rubbed my head. Were they trying to comfort me? I shook my head to try and refuse. They laughed at me as I did so.
Tika!
Hanyu showed up. She couldn't hold back her devastated tears.
また、ダメでした。ダメでした。また、
When I saw Hanyu's painful tears, I was convinced. I was wrong. Hanyu is not just a bystander. She's just too scared to face reality because she can't stand the pain anymore. Hanyu wants a happy future too, but her hopes were betrayed countless times, and she was hurt far too much. For some reason, seeing her sorrowful expression calmed me down. Were you the one who stopped time there, Hanyu? Am I to assume that you have that kind of power as well? Perhaps Hanyu was crying in my place.
いいのよ、羽生。私たち、あれだけ努力した。精一杯頑張った。もう一息で、運命を覆せそうな予感すらした。それでも届かなかったなら仕方がないし。それにね、なんだか気持ちいいの。
I never fought this hard in my life. I've never learned so many things. Because I can repeat my life endlessly, I've been taking each one for granted. But everyone else is taking their lives seriously. I wasn't learning anything because I wasn't doing that. But I finally understand. I learned something from this life, and I put all my effort into it. So, I'm sad that I didn't make it, but I feel satisfied just the same. It's a strange kind of satisfaction. I wonder how many of these memories I can keep. I get the sense that I'm going to lose my memory of this evening. If that's the case, I'll lose my memory of seeing Takano's face. In that case, let's pray and hope that will not happen next time. We will be 100% prepared next time. And you, Hanyu, well, I said what I said. I do think that you're the remaining one that needs to fight with us next time. I finally found out that Takano is the mastermind. And I'm going to repeat the same road again, not knowing the truth. She killed my friends as if she were merely killing some bugs. I don't want to forget that. No matter how hard my death would be, I need to remember Takano's face.
羽生、私はくじけない。この記憶がたとえ引き継げなくてもいい。がむしゃらに生きていく。6月の狭い日々にしか生きられなくなり、最後には綿流しの日にしか生きていられない存在になってもいい。それが私の生なら、精一杯生きて、きっと自分の人生を切り開く。僕も忘れません。きっと覚えてて、もしリカが忘れていたら、きっと僕が教えますから。羽生、あなたはやっぱり冷たい傍観者のふりをしていたのは悲しさに怯えていたからなんだよね。僕もみんなと楽しく過ごす未来に行きたかったです。
Anya started to cry like a baby. She's so stupid. She decided to abandon hope because she didn't want to deal with the sadness that she always felt on this night. But she ended up hurt and devastated anyway. Hanyu, are you happy that this world is ending just like you predicted? I decided not to ask her such an unpleasant question. The car stopped, and 2 men pulled me out of the vehicle. We had returned to the Furuta shrine. There were several men waiting in front of the offertory box. Nearby, there were countless sharp knives laid out in the ground. They're going to cut open my stomach with those tools and pull out my intestines. They took off all my clothes. They left the gag inside my mouth and the handcuffs around my wrists. I wasn't embarrassed to be naked in front of them. Rather, I was just furious that Takano was getting joy out of doing this to me. Don't forget this humiliation. The pain I'm about to experience should be carved into my soul forever. I'm not going to forget this. Everyone worked together, and we finally revealed who was behind it all. If I forget this, my friends' efforts and deaths will have been in vain. I need to stay alive as long as I can, so that I will remember the pain.
羽生、目を背けないで。あなたも見ていなさい。そして心に刻んで。僕にはそのくらいの協力しかできないのでしょうか。触ることも喋ることもできない僕にはそんなことしかできないのでしょうか。それで十分よ。あなたが目を背けないでいてくれたなら、私も多分痛みに耐えられると思うから。
Hanyu nodded and sat right next to me, while continuing to cry. We then looked up at the night sky together. The moon was shining brightly, as if it's taken pity upon me. We also looked at the faces of my murderers. That beautiful moon was gradually stained red. It's getting cold. It's so painful. I'm consumed with the fear of not being able to do anything about this. But Hanyu is right next to me. That gives me comfort. It's not just Hanyu either. Everyone is here with me. Everyone is there watching me, so I can stand this torture. That's why it wasn't painful. I didn't struggle. I didn't care about Takano's crazy laughter. This was such a wonderful world. We didn't overcome this fate, but I have no regrets. Of course, I am still sad. I am disappointed. My future is right in front of my eyes. My hand could almost reach it. Even so, we did what we could. I have to be proud of myself. Keiichi voiced his disagreement. He still felt that we could have done more. We were almost there. We almost defeated this fate. We didn't win. But not because our enemies were strong. We didn't win because we didn't try hard enough.
でも、みんなは心を一つにして頑張っていましたのです。僕は見ていました。全部見ていましたのです。
いや、足りてなかったんだ。運命を打ち破ろうとする意志が全員で結束できていたなら、必ず奇跡は起こせたんだ。
そうなんだよ。全員が信じたなら、必ず奇跡が起こせるんだよ。さとこもリカちゃまも、みんなよく頑張りました。ごめんなさいですわ、リカ。あなたが打ち明ける勇気を見せてくれたのに、私はあなたを救えなかったですわ。
Sadako held my shoulder and cried.
そうよ。みんなで力を合わせたわ。 それでダメなら仕方のないこと。ありがとう、みんな。本当にありがとう。多分あまたの世界と同じ死を迎えるのに、こんなにも諦めがつく死は初めて。この死を代償に、私は本当に大切なことを学んだ。リカちゃん、違うの。奇跡が起こらなかった理由、レナは知ってるよ。
Rena spoke gently, but she wasn't smiling at all.
ねえ、本当にみんな奇跡を起こそうと信じてた？未来を望むとき、全員が信じてなかったら奇跡は起こらないんだよ。
何言ってんだよレナ。俺たちは結束した、団結した。運命を打ち破れることを疑わなかったぞ。なあミオン。
うん、そうだよレナ。誰も運命に勝てないなんて思わなかったよ。リカちゃんのこの運命を覆したいと思う誰もが絶対に運命を打ち破れると信じてたよ。そうですわ。リカですらそれを信じましたのよ。最後の最後にリカは私たちを信じて運命を打ち破れると信じましたのよ。もちろんレナも信じたよ。でも信じなかった人がいると思うの。誰がです？
What? Who can it be?
ねえ、あなた。
Rena turned to Hanyu and asked her a question.
あなた、信じてた？運命に打ち勝てるって信じててくれた？触れることができなくても、喋ることができなくても、信じることはできるんだよ。あなたも信じてくれたなら、きっと奇跡が起きた。僕が信じて何が変わったのでしょうか？
I do believe so, yeah. I think Rena does, indeed, strongly.
僕は何もできない非力な存在なのです。僕は見ていることしかできない、受け入れることしかできない。そんな僕が信じるだけで奇跡が起こせたというのですか？
ああ、起こせたな。
Keiichi stated it clearly. He wasn't trying to blame her. He was just stating the truth.
そうだね。あの時、こっちは6人だった。向こうは7人だった。あなたが信じてくれてたら、それだけで心は7つだった。だったなら、きっと奇跡が起きた。奇跡はね、触れたり喋ったりで起こすんじゃないんだよ。信じる気持ちが起こすんだよ。
Hanyu had realized that this ending wasn't caused by fate. It was because she didn't believe. In other words, this happened because she was so weak as to accept this fate. She started crying again.
名前も知らないあなた。あなたにも悲しみや辛さと戦う勇気が必要だった。あなたも運命と戦う勇気が必要だった。あなたが望んだなら、みんなが望む世界にきっと行けた。それが、あなただけが信じなかっただけでたどり着けなかったなら、それはあなたの責任なの。
It was hard to believe Rena could say something so harsh. Her words were piercing Hanyu's heart. But those words were necessary for me and for her. Only faith can create a miracle. That sounds like something you might hear in a fairy tale. It's not easy to put it into action. People suspect others. They don't trust others. It's easier to not have hope. And it's so difficult to believe. That's why faith can make miracles happen.
僕は触れないのですよ。喋れないのですよ。そんな僕でも信じれば奇跡が起こったというのですか？だって今こうしてレナとあなたは話しているよ。私はあなたと言葉を交わしたのはこれが初めてだけれど、いつもあなたがいるのを知っていた。あなたに言葉をどうすればかけられるか考えていたよ。私たちが楽しく遊んでいるとき、あなただけが輪の外から眺めていたことを知っていたんだよ。
Yeah. It has always been difficult for you to communicate with everybody, but hey, you did make sounds. You tried. Hell, we're having a conversation like right now. That and I do believe that you're the one who stopped time there for a second, so I feel like if you could just do a little bit more, just a little bit more, you could be the key to everything. That one day, you're definitely going to be able to communicate with everybody and have fun with everybody.
だって輪の中に入りたくても僕は誰にも見えないし話しかけられないし。
It is possible. It can be possible.
僕を見たらみんな化け物だと言いますです。
Nah.
僕はもう二度と化け物と言われたくないのです。
誰が言うよそんなことを。俺たちと一緒にいたなら俺たちは仲間だ。
そうですわよ。仲間のことを化け物呼ばわりなんて失礼しちゃいますわ。化け物かどうかは容姿じゃなくて心で決まるんだよ。ね、シオン。そういうことです。まあその見地から言えば私の方がよっぽど化け物ですよ。頭に角が生えていても僕は化け物とは呼ばれないのでしょうか。身体的特徴で化け物なんて誰も呼ばないよ。むしろキュートなくらいだよ。
レナに気をつけろ。変に気に入られるとお持ち帰りされるぞ。
In fact, I might say that Rena is the scariest as a monster sometimes, if you were to enter cute mode. So I don't think you have to worry about that. I realized then that I was standing with everyone, looking down at my own body. I see. I'm finally dead. I looked at my bloody body by my feet. It upset me that Takano was still enjoying the torture. But the body that remained was nothing but a shell.
大丈夫かリカちゃん。
死んだ人に大丈夫かとは変な話なのです。
Everyone smiled rightly. It's my first time feeling so much love in death. And it's good that your death here was made at least a little bit better with everybody here. Everyone is already dead. And that's why I feel so happy to be dead, to join them. Suddenly, the world got darker, and my body started to sink downward. Almost getting teary-eyed. Almost. I could feel myself disappearing. And I still had the sensation of my friend's hands on mine.
行こうぜ。みんな。
そうだね。あなたもみんなという言葉に含まれてるんだよ。ほら、いつまでも泣いてないで行こう。
My vision had gone dark, but somehow I could still see. Rena offered her hand to Hanyu, and Hanyu slowly took it.
羽生、あなたが私と出会う前にどんな悲しいことがあったか知らないけれど、みんなは絶対にあなたを受け入れてくれるわ。僕がいても楽しいでしょうか？
Oh, I bet. The more the merrier.
僕はみんなに受け入れてもらえるのでしょうか？うん。だから、おいで。
Rena touched Hanyu's hand. He felt like everyone else laid their hands on top too. If only they had hands to do so. Let's go, Hanyu. Let's accept this sorrow, so we can embrace joy as well. Believe in the bright future that's waiting for us. The miracle will happen. We will obtain it. Okay? Yes, Hanyu said, with a definite nod. Oh god. Well, I guess so. What's outside of the well? Is it something worth fighting for? What's outside of the well? Is it something worth getting hurt for? What's outside of the well? I'm going to fight and get hurt in order to find that out. I'm sure what's waiting is a beautiful world, even if I get to the bottom of the well again. The key to the new world is my willingness to get out of here. Even if I get out or not, I will eventually get to the new world. Well, I guess indeed it was too much to hope that we were actually gonna get, like, we're gonna succeed in this. I was hoping, but you know what? I'll accept this ending too. At least everybody died together. In that sense, I guess you could say that this is the best ending so far. Yeah, go figure. Emergency Manual 1. If the existence of a terminal patient, L5, is confirmed, The Institute director must resolve the situation before the L5 begins engaging in antisocial behavior. However, they must ensure that the secret remains hidden. To that end, the director may also request assistance from the Secrecy Preservation Unit. As for the Secrecy Preservation Unit, they may request permission to fire from the Institute director if necessary. All efforts should be made to secure the L5 subject is alive, but if that proves obstructive to maintaining secrecy, their life may be forfeit. At all times, maintaining secrecy and preventing exposure will be of the highest priority. However, preserving secrecy will take priority over preventing exposure. Emergency Manual Appendix 9 FAQ. Can Emergency Manual 34 be administered if an outbreak of L5 occurs, putting matters beyond the control of the Secrecy Preservation Unit? Additionally, is the Institute Director responsible for determining what constitutes an out-of-control situation? The answer is yes. If an accident occurs and a hazardous material, the H170 series, is exposed to the public, can Emergency Manual 34 be administered? Yes. If an accident has occurred and the nature of the institute is revealed to the public, the Secrecy Preservation Unit will take steps to resolve the situation. However, if this information is spread too widely, can Emergency Manual 34 still be administered? Additionally, is the Institute Director responsible for making that decision? Is spread too widely? I mean, what would that mean, spread too widely? Like, what would be the range of that? The decision to execute Emergency Manual 34 must be carefully deliberated over and then sectioned by an official. However, in the case of emergency, does the Institute Director have the right to make the final decision? The answer is the execution of Emergency Manual 34 must be sectioned by an official at all times. However, the Institute Director may petition the urgency of its use to an official. Emergency Manual 34. Reproduction of or removal of this document is prohibited. This manual may only be read with the appropriate permissions. This manual will only apply upon approval by the highest authority. Nothing short of official authorization shall count as approval. Furthermore, those authorized to apply this manual must make their decision as soon as possible when it is required. If the situation threatens to spiral out of control, and the official accedes that this is the case, the a.k.a. Institute must make the final decision to preserve the secret and prevent its detection by others. The following is an outline of how to execute that final resolution. Terminate all patients of up L2. Oh shit. Destroy all evidence inside the Institute. Conceal the fact that this manual was administered. The contents of this manual must be executed by the Institute Director within 48 hours of the incident. If the Director is not available, the Chief Officer must execute it in his place. The Institute Director may demand support from the Chief Officer in executing this manual. Oh wait, are you saying that the Institute Director is Irie in this case? Nah, that can't be. I mean, that will be one of the higher-ups from Tokyo. If this manual is expected to be executed, the Chief Officer may issue the preliminary orders. The final resolution must be executed in the following steps. Because I don't think that Irie has that kind of power within Tokyo. He only have as much power to try to, like, cure that stuff. I mean, okay, clearly Irie has, like, all the knowledge of the village to a point where he would be knowledgeable in whether Manual 34 has to be applied or not. But is he the one who has to do the order? That he can give the go towards applying Manual 44 on the village and all that. Destroy everything. Disguise the incident as a natural gas disaster and quarantine the area. The quarantine unit must disguise themselves as police officers and isolate the Hinamizawa region from the outside world. Yeah, the official explanation must be that there is a gas disaster within the village. The equipment for the operation will be stored at a vacant lot, where Yagauchi Quarry used to be. The equipment must undergo routine maintenance. In the event of external breach or internal escape, if they do not respond to notice of the gas disaster or orders to evacuate, use of firearms is authorized. The approval to use firearms is given by the Chief of the Secrecy Preservation Unit to the Chief of the Traffic Blockade Unit. Shutting down communications. The Communication Sabotage Unit must ensure that all forms of communication, including radio, have been disabled in the Hinamizawa area. Yeah, makes sense. They must take care not to fall under suspicion, and communications must be disrupted for a minimum amount of time. The facility belonging to the telephone company is inside of the traffic blockade, so any civilians inside may be shot and killed. The Chief of the Secrecy Preservation Unit may give permission to use lethal force to the Chief of the Communication Sabotage Unit. Assembling the infected carriers. The Secrecy Preservation Unit, I was going to call it like SPU, must assemble the infected populace in the Hinamizawa Regional Disaster Shelter. Disaster Shelter. Refer to the enclosed documents for gathering procedures. Upon assembling, the unit must count the number of the infected and confirm that everyone is present. Be sure to not allow the infected to expose the true nature of the gas disaster. Additionally, the infected must not be allowed to bring any large personal belongings with them. However, they may take their valuables, including bank books and cash. Infected who refuse to assemble may be shot, but the Chief of the Secrecy Preservation Unit must carefully consider the decision to do so. Terminating the infected. Once they are assembled, the Secrecy Preservation Unit must terminate all the infected. Before that point, care must be taken to ensure that they are not suspicious of the story of the gas disaster. Oh my god. You're telling me that, okay, like I was thinking that the unit, like what happened during the Hinamizawa disaster would be that the soldiers came in and just shot everybody on sight. But my god, this actually makes it feel worse. Like they assembled everybody at first, making them think that it's just a gas disaster, and once they were given the go order, they basically massacred like the entire populace in one area. Like mass execution. Jesus Christ. Be sure that they are treated as humanely as possible. Yeah. If any problems occur, the unit has approval to fire their weapons. The Chief of the SPU must also make the decision. Bodies with gunshot wounds should not be placed together with those that have been poisoned. Concealment of the Institute. The Institute Concealment Unit must collect all the classified items, refer to the 193 items in the appendix, in the Institute in order to suppress the evidence. Refer to the appendix for more detailed instructions. The research staff at the Institute must assist with this operation. This unit must exercise extreme caution, as they will be handling a number of toxic substances. Strict quarantine must be maintained of the concealment block. The air-proof door must be welded shut, and the underground area must be flooded. The entrance to the area must be welded shut and concealed completely. Furthermore, the concealment block will be completely removed within 3 years. The Institute Concealment Unit must eliminate all civilians who would try to approach the Institute. Hold on a second. I see. The use of firearms is not permitted, except in emergencies. The chief of this SPU may give the order to fire. Searching the village. The SPU must search the whole village for any survivors. Any person who was not present during the assembly must be found. Any survivors found after the termination of the infected may be shot immediately. Any survivors found after the termination of the infected may be shot immediately. However, if the survivor is willing to surrender, do not shoot. Instead, take them into the custody of the SPU. The unit must then terminate the captive, using the same method as for the other infected. I feel like this is an example where Keiichi was such survivor. I mean, he was taken into custody, and then he was closed until he died somewhere in December. I guess this is what they're talking about. It is kind of interesting that they did not kill him on the spot though. Transferred to the job to the official disaster recovery team. Make sure not to arouse suspicion. Complete withdrawal. After the completion of all operations, the SPU will retreat from the Hinamizawa area. They must be careful not to be suspected by the disaster recovery team. Furthermore, the Institute will continue to secure the concealment block until complete removal is finished. The Queen and her carriers. It is assumed that the pathogen has the same characteristics as creatures such as ants. There is a queen of the carriers of the disease, just like there is a queen ant, and this position has been passed down the line of the fluid family. This assumption is made based on the legends and ancient writings that have been passed down in the village. It is already confirmed that the carriers have a tendency to protect their queen. Additionally, the queen carrier can only survive within the boundary of the village. Probability of outbreak. Oh boy, we're gonna be getting quite a lot of like appendix like after ending a chapter, aren't we? Like this is basically like the tips like after the end. As ordinary patients will become ill when they travel far away from the queen, it's assumed that the further and longer they are from her, the higher the chance of symptoms occurring becomes. Okay. Also, mental state plays a strong factor as well, and it's estimated that those who are especially emotionally unstable or show strong yearning for their home are more likely to exhibit symptoms. Okay, makes sense. It is believed that the Takano relaxation method is the most effective means of suppressing symptoms. But if the patient still shows no improvement, only returning them to their home and the queen will be effective. Concerning terminal patients. Terminal patients, as they suffer from an extreme persecution complex, are incapable of functioning within society. Cases of arson and murder have been confirmed. They may present severe problems with their units. Records show that terminal patients appear even in Hinamizawa, and they will not recover even if they're located near the queen. Really now. Therefore, the decision to dispose of the problem must be made as soon as possible. It's recommended that the infected be quarantined before they start behaving irregularly. We suggest tracking down those formerly from Hinamizawa and placing them under special medication observation, a.k.a. like Keiichi in Chapter 1. The collapse of the carrier community. For the aforementioned reasons, we predict that should the queen carrier die, infected villagers will exhibit terminal symptoms on a village-wide scale. Terminal symptoms will begin showing within 24 hours at the earliest and 48 hours at the latest. For that reason, the final decision must be made within 48 hours. Based on the size of the village, neither ordinary officers nor the military police may be able to control the chaos they may bring. We believe the best response is to treat them as an armed, anti-national uprising, and immediately suppress them with the military. January 1945. Jesus. What is this? 2. Colonel Koizumi of the Supreme Council for the Direction of War. from Hifumi Takano. I knew it! Hifumi T was Hifumi Takano. June 23rd, 1983. Wait, so are you saying... Okay, so... Jesus Christ. Okay, I don't think that all the red stuff that we've read was in the same segment as what we've read, like right here. But at least this, like the collapse of the carrier community, like all this stuff about the Queen Carrier and all that, it was written by this doctor in 1945? At that point? Because you would think that this is something that like Tokyo, like the institute would figure out and be aware of, like, in these years. But man, even that early, wow, ever since the war. June 23rd, 1983. Document E420 for the 58th Defense Commissioner and TECOM 733 Commander. TECOM 733 is hereby ordered to be on standby within 24 hours, armed for urban suppression. The company commander must also thoroughly study Emergency Manual 34. Makes sense? I mean, the art test was such an important thing right over here. You should do your homework. Manual 34 is pretty much important in this, apparently. Select personnel carefully with preservation of secrecy in mind. Additionally, test the effectiveness of the vaccine with the support of the National Research Center of Infectious Diseases. Employ those with positive immunity. June 23rd, 1983. Document E711 for the 58th Director of the NIHC. Attention Equipment Testing Company Commander 733. The National Research Center of Infectious Diseases. Infectious Pathogen Department, Suite 13. Official sealed, omitted. About the Hinamizawa syndrome. This is information regarding the Hinamizawa syndrome. The Hinamizawa syndrome is an infectious disease caused by a virus. There are no initial symptoms. Instead, their onset begins when the patient's emotional state becomes unstable, or if the queen carrier dies. Okay. The main symptoms of the illness are hallucinations and emotional instability, paired with an extreme persecution complex. Furthermore, patients are frequently unaware of their own mental abnormalities, making identification outside examination nearly impossible. The only way to do so is by observing symptoms indicative of terminal abnormal behavior. In many cases, patients engage in antisocial behavior, which is the largest issue created by the syndrome. This behavior is caused by hormonal factors, as this disease mainly affects the mind as opposed to the body. Okay? In the end, the patients will experience extreme irritation in their lymph nodes, and they will claw at their throat or wrists. Okay? This is the only symptom that is recognized by the patient. Important points regarding the sterilization operation. This is an advisory notice for virus control. The pathogen is an airborne infectious virus. Therefore, no effective preventative methods exist, and inoculation is required. After the mission is completed, all staff members must take a medical exam, and those with positive test results must come forward. You know, with all this talk about like symptoms and all that, I'm starting to think that hearing footsteps is definitely not a symptom of Hinamizawa syndrome. I mean, not sure if I can say that like 100%. Like, is it possible that having the Hinamizawa syndrome is what makes us connect with Hanyu more? Or is it entirely dependent on us having hope and, you know, connecting with Hanyu in like different ways that have nothing to do with the Hinamizawa syndrome? Cause yeah, it affects the body and all that, but this feels like after learning about Hanyu's existence and the spiritual nature of it all, I don't think that Hinamizawa syndrome has like that kind of symptom on a spiritual level to hear like these footsteps coming from Hanyu. I don't know. I guess up until this point, what we thought the hearing of footsteps was a symptom was just pure coincidence, making us think that it's because of the Hinamizawa syndrome, when in actuality, Hanyu just so happened to be nearby and tried her best to make some noise and all that, like hearing footsteps and all that. Like, wow, our protagonist and all that had the syndrome. Be cautious when interacting with the carriers, villagers. Even after inoculation, any contact with their body fluids will cause infection. Do not come into direct contact with them. If assumed infected, individuals must use the testing syringe and test themselves for the disease. If you feel an extreme irritation in your lymph nodes, it's likely you have terminal symptoms. In that case, you must get tested immediately. If test results comes out positive, inject the treatment medication C120. If the irritation persists after 10 minutes, use a second injection. If there is still no change in symptoms, seek treatment at HQ. Okay, so I assume that the cure / medication that Satoko uses and the one that we saw Rika hold, like all these chapters, to like try to put it in others, like Shion, that was cure C120. Do not use C120 if your test results are not positive. If used on a healthy body, symptoms of high fever, rashes, dilated pupils, and hallucination will be observable within 10 minutes. If used on a healthy body, so you're saying that, okay, so you're saying that that cure, yeah, I guess so. So yeah, basically, if the cure is used on a healthy body, that will affect the patient actually. If they do not have like high, like, well, hold on. So I guess this means that this would be something for patients in L5 stage, right? Because let's say that the patient is in L2 stage. I assume that the cure would be too much and these effects would happen. Obviously, if the patient has like L0 or something like that, has no stages, they're going to be infected. But is that the same case for L2 and so on? Or is it just a L5 kind of thing? If this occurs, one must seek treatment at HQ. Government officials explained the entire situation in a luxurious meeting room, adorned with a marble table and crystal ashtrays. The chief cabinet secretary was in a panic. He'd never heard about any of this before. Feelings of panic were only natural. One girl's death was going to drive 2,000 villagers into a frenzy. Hearing that a disease like that exists was surprising enough. But on top of that, it was secretly researched for military use. And now there was a horrific situation caused by the director of the local research institute engaging in embezzlement.
そんな危険な病気初めて聞いたよ。本当に治療の手段はないのか。
はい。国立研究所の説明では、重度感染者の発症に対する治療法は確立したばかりで、全住民への対応は事実上不可能とのことです。最短で24時間以内、長くとも48時間以内に、山村の人口2000人が全て末期発症するとのことです。甚大な被害と影響が予想されます。
The danger of this Hinamizawa syndrome was explained over and over again to the chief secretary. He didn't have anything more to say, but that didn't mean that he could blindly accept it either. He simply couldn't believe that the only way to resolve the situation was to kill all 2,000 infected villagers. Jesus.
そりゃ大変なことになるのはわかるけど、住民を皆殺しにするなんてそんなの許可できるわけないだろう。そもそもなんでこんな危険な病気を隠蔽して研究なんかしてたんだ。 そもそもそういう事態を招いたのはその関係の連中の責任じゃないのかね。第一、こんな危険な研究は今や日本の国益に貢献しないどころか損ないかねんぞ。
Okay, so I guess this basically confirms that not all the government of Japan were aware of this disease.
どうして昭和の58年までこんな馬鹿げた研究をしていたんだ。報告書によれば研究目的のために撲滅を意図的に遅らせていたそうじゃないか。しかも汚職をめぐるトラブルの果てにこんな事態だ。これはテロだよ、テロ。東京の老害だ。こんな研究を指示していた人間には全員責任を取ってもらうぞ。いつまでも大戦の亡霊に取りつかれている連中を追放したまえ。これは東京の海を出すいい機会じゃないのかね。
責任者の追及は必ず行いますが、それより前に対応を考えなければなりません。
総理、ご決断を。
滅菌作戦を承認しない場合のシミュレートを聞かせてください。
はい。今から36時間後には村人のほぼ全員が末期発症。末期的な被害妄想に取りつかれ、反社会的な行為を行います。想定されるのは自殺、殺人、放火、強盗、強姦、治安の完全なる崩壊です。騒動はおそらくHinamizawa地区のみでなく周辺地区へも波及します。結果、世界規模での注目を浴びることになるでしょう。民間の独自調査の結果、奇病が原因であることが発覚するのは食い止められません。野党は奇病の対応の不手際を政争の具に次期選挙を有利に運ぶでしょう。また東京内でも総理の対応に批判が高まるでしょう。彼らの指示は総理の列島改造に欠かせません。そして何よりも軍事目的での研究が政府内部から暴かれる可能性があります。これだけは断固阻止しなくては我が国に致命的信用ダメージを与えかねません。
逆に滅菌作戦を承認した場合はどうなりますか。
はい、自然災害を装いますので、やはり対応の不手際の野党追及は避けられません。ただし奇病研究について発覚することはないでしょう。もし万が一奇病の軍事的研究が世界に発覚したら、我が国はアジア地域でのイニシアチブを完全に喪失します。
他国の援助を受ける政党は一大キャンペーンを張るな、売国どもめ。そうなれば野党の政権奪取は必至だよ。日本は宣戦布告なくして占領されるぞ。
シミュレートの結果では第2党第3党が連立した場合、与野党の勢力は完全に反転します。国際世論は我が国を一斉に非難。国連に対し NBC 兵器開発疑惑の査察を要求するでしょう。近隣国は政府主導でバッシングキャンペーンを展開。高支持率を背景に対日外交を強硬路線に転換します。我が国は政治的焦土と化すでしょう。
国際信用はペンペン草一本残らんということかね。くそ。つまりHinamizawa地区と周辺自治体の数十万人だけの問題では済まんということだな。しかし全てを闇に葬るための犠牲が2000人とは多すぎる。
日本国内において生物兵器研究が行われていたことが露呈することだけは避けなければなりません。私はどうやら大戦の亡霊の尻を吹く羽目になりそうですね。
滅菌作戦は計画通りに隠密で実行できるのかね。滅菌作戦が発覚すれば奇病研究以上の大スキャンダルになるぞ。
はい、ご安心ください。それにつきましては、自衛隊内の機密保持に特化した専門部隊が当たります。このような事態を想定し、研究と訓練を重ねた部隊です。万一の失敗はありえません。
都市沈黙戦という言葉は初めて聞きましたが、これはガスによる虐殺のことですね。自衛隊にガス戦を習熟した部隊があったとは驚きました。
ガス防護を知るにはガス戦を知らなければなりません。ガス虐殺に備えるにはガス虐殺を知らねばなりません。装備実験隊は日本国が受ける可能性のあるすべての攻撃に対し日夜研究を重ねています。
He let out a small sigh. He couldn't see the line between ethical and unethical. Can any research be justified by the excuse of preparing against hostilities? But that's also what preparation was all about. Some evils must be accepted as necessary. The 80 Institute was one such evil.
明かせぬ研究を葬るために明かせぬ方法を取るか。
罪悪感の伴う任務だが、隊員から事実が漏れ出すことはないのかね。
ありえません。隊員は第一空挺から精鋭を選抜し、さらに高い忠誠心を持つ者のみで構成しております。実戦はこれが初めてになりますが、練度は極めて高く、内部の機密保持も問題ありません。
まさに暗殺の専門部隊ですね。
総理、どうか緊急マニュアル第34号の執行にご決裁をお願いいたします。
防衛庁長官、この作戦は必ず成功しますか？事件が大騒ぎになる前に食い止められますか？いえ、犠牲者を最小限に抑えられますか？
はい、総理。すでに予備命令を発し、作戦準備に入っております。ご決裁がいただければ、直ちに出動して作戦に入ります。
私には人口2000人を虐殺する命令など下せません。ですが、内閣総理大臣として犠牲者を最小に抑える義務もあります。
総理、胸中をお察しします。
長官、どうか犠牲者が一番少なくて済む方法を選択してください。2000人がどうしても治療できないなら、不必要な犠牲者が出ないよう迅速な対応をお願いいたします。
はい、ご決裁を感謝いたします。必ずや朗報をお持ちいたします。
2000人の犠牲が朗報と呼べるならですがね。
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, positive results. Clearly, not a whole lot of people are gonna die from this.
奥野君、東京の皆さんに近日中にお会いできる席を設けてください。今回の件について釈明を直接聞かせていただきたいと思います。
わかりました。
ところで、その問題の研究所長の入江氏は逮捕しましたか？
いえ、服毒自殺とのことです。研究の終了が自身の人生を否定されたものと悲観しての発作的行動と思われていますが、
彼を凶器に駆り立てた理由は永遠に闇の中ということですか
？The execution of Emergency Manual 34 is approved. June 23rd, 1983. Prime Minister. Director General of the Defense Agency.
皆さん、輸送の都合で荷物を持つことはできません。
Oh god, are we actually gonna see this, like, too?
手荷物は禁じます。繰り返します。手荷物は禁じます。現金、通帳、印鑑の類だけを携帯してください。混乱防止のため車両避難は禁じています。
It was the middle of the night, and yet countless villagers were out and about. Some of them were locking their doors, some of them were watering their plants, and some of them were piling up food in their dogs' dinner bowls. Small children were crying in fear. Members of the town council were yelling angrily while counting up the villagers, Reportedly, the village had been cut off from the rest of the world after volcanic gas gushed out of the mountains. The number of policemen and military units in the village added to the strong smell of sulfur in the air, and dispelled any doubts the villagers might have had. The more religious among the elderly were convinced that this was the curse of Uiga who had passed away the day before. They were certain that Oyashiro-sama was enraged, and that the door to hell had been opened. Soldiers wearing gas masks guided the villagers to the evacuation center.
なんで兵隊さんは災害なのに鉄砲。
皆さんが避難した後の家屋を守るためです。また、災害に便乗して商店を襲撃するボートに対してです。
Hinamizawaにそんな輩はおらんのじゃ。
第一小隊避難誘導順調。了解。一個分隊を応援に向かわせます。
兵隊さん、じいさまの位牌を持ってんじゃならんがね。
位牌は構いません。急いでください。紹介の方は天候を怠らないように。歩行困難な方は申し出てください。隊員が補助します。
おお、リカちゃまが殺されたからお社様がお怒りになったのじゃ。
お社様、お社様、お社様、どうか怒りをお鎮めください。防災訓練通りに避難しちゃれ。班長は天候終わったら町会役員に連絡せんかいね。
鬼ヶ淵から正気が溢れ出したんで、お社様はお怒りだんで。
こんなに大勢いるんじゃ助かる方法なんかなかったよ。村で死なせてくれな。
大丈夫です。輸送ヘリとボーガス仕様のバスが回されます。必ず助かりますから。
みんな営林署へ集まれ。4丁目は違うだろう。郵便局裏の公民館だぞ。
皆さん、防災訓練と同じです。落ち着いて災害時避難場所に集合してください。団体行動をお願いします。一人の乱れが全体の足を引きます。どうか団体行動を。家には必ず戻れます。
The villagers couldn't see the expressions under the soldiers' gas masks. They wondered what kind of expressions they were hiding under there. The soldiers were, of course, lying to the villagers, knowing that they would never return to their homes again. One such trooper cried under his mask, but the villagers never saw his tears.
引き返してください。車両での避難は禁止されています。この先はガス流で寸断されており危険です。あんたにも硫黄の匂いがわかるでしょう。
Some people tried to leave in their cars, so as to take larger items with them. However, the quarantine unit had sealed off all the roads leading outside. The gas masks of the troopers and the smell of sulfur persuaded them to return and obey their instructions. Some of them tried to contact Ognomiya, but their phones would not connect. The lines were busy, no matter how much they tried. They simply assumed that the phone lines were overwhelmed because of the disaster. Some of the villagers had access to radios. They tried to figure out what the situation was like outside, but all they could hear over the radio was loud static. It was the same with the television. They couldn't contact anyone outside the village, so they really were totally isolated. And so, they had nothing to rely on but the instructions of the police and the military. They were all like moths heading towards the light, never doubting that they would be safe there. One old war veteran listened to the noise from the radio and muttered,
アメさんの妨害電波食らった時もこんな音がしたね。
As it turned out, he was absolutely correct. However, he turned off the radio when his son urged him to evacuate. The villagers had all gathered at their evacuation points. Some that were at the school, and some were at the community center. They were to stay in the building until the evacuation vehicles arrived. The soldiers told them to stay inside so they could keep track of the number of evacuees.
万一のガス流に備えて窓はすべて閉めてください。念のため窓ガラスはテープで目張りします。 申し訳ございませんが、ご協力をお願いいたします。
よし、来た。若いのは率先して手伝え。
People started to seal up all the windows and vents with the duct tape that was handed to them. They completely sealed every opening, even as they heard the disquieting conversation of the soldiers. It was long past 3 a.m., but everyone was wide awake with fear. They were having an extremely long night. Coincidentally, the end to their night had almost arrived.
全部お社様のたたりなんじゃ。リカちゃま、リカちゃま、お社様、お社様。
やっぱり古出神社の鬼隠しはお社様のお怒りの先触れだったんだ。
あの日、古出神社は鬼の国に飲み込まれたんよ。リカちゃまは鬼たちに腹当たを食らわれたんじゃ。
They all started saying that the gas disaster was caused by the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Erika's death and the mysterious disappearance of her friends and the 2 detectives were also the result of the curse. People started talking about being demoned away. They had no idea that Keiichi and his friend's short battle sealed their fate for that night. The more religious villagers had become convinced that the children and the detectives went missing, because they volunteered to become a sacrifice to calm Oyashiro-sama's anger after Rika's death. They didn't know the truth. They couldn't know. Not one realized that Keiichi and his friends' efforts had all been in vain. Indeed, in Hinamizawa, everything that happens is the will of Oyashiro-sama. But why did it have to be that way? Before the series of mysterious deaths occurred, no one really used the term the curse of Oyashiro-sama that frequently. In other words, who set them up? People in this village were set up to believe that the curse of Oyashiro-sama happens every year. They really are just too superstitious.
サンサ、全小隊が点呼を終了しました。遅れていた自主避難者もさっき最後の家族が合流したようです。全員揃いました。
そう、いよいよね。お社様のたたりが現実となる。お社様の生まれ変わりである古出理香を綿流しにするという冒涜によってお社様の怒りが村に下される。それでこの5年間の連続したたたりは本当の神罰に昇格される。もう誰にも事件なんて呼ばせない。これは荒ぶる神の怒りなのだから。始めなさい。
中隊長より全隊員へ、彼らのために1分間の黙祷を捧げよう。サンサ、1分だけご許可を。
お好きになさい。
Oh boy. The ones that are gonna have to pull the trigger, they're gonna have this in their minds for the rest of their lives. And this is gonna be hell for them too. Takano gave him a disparaging laugh. The company commander crossed his heart and began to speak.
天に召します我らの父よ。罪なき彼らをどうかお導きください。彼らの尊き犠牲がそれ以上の犠牲を防ぐことをどうか報いてください。そして願わくば罪深き我らをお許しください。我らが今日ここにあることをお許しください。
The company commander isn't Christian. In fact, he doesn't follow any religion. However, he prayed because he felt the need to ask someone for forgiveness. He wasn't even sure if he was saying it correctly, but he still prayed to God. He asked forgiveness for committing his sin and continued to pray. Takano was speaking in a soft voice. She was talking to herself.
神がいつ降臨されるのかは誰も知らない。それは例えるなら 泥棒がいつ訪れるのかわからないように。だから予期せずしてその時を迎えて、不信心であったことに歯ぎしりすることがないよう、常に目を覚ましていなさい。エセ預言者たちは、神の降臨を声高に叫ぶであろうが、それに惑わされてはなりませんか。
One man heard her murmurs.
マタイの福音書ですね。
そうなの？祖父の好きだった言葉よ。報われる日がいつ訪れるかわからないから、常に勤勉であれって言葉だと思っていたけど。
今日が報われる日なのですか？
そうよ。あなたにはわからないでしょうけどね。
失礼ながら、主の降臨は慈悲深いものであるべきだと信じています。このような日にそれを例えられることは冒涜かと思います。
He was trying to tell her that using that verse of the Bible was inappropriate for the occasion. However, Takano simply laughed as though she had heard something very funny.
ごめんなさいね。あなたは神に試されなさい。私は今日を境に試す側となるのよ。
以上で黙祷を終了する。
And with the end of the silence,
全小隊滅菌を開始せよ。
the order was given in as hollow and reluctant a manner as an order can possibly be.
今こそ私の理想はすべて完成した。文字通りの理想郷がここにはある。ここでは私は神で、私のたたりは永遠に刻まれ、語り継がれるのだ。
People were packed into the classroom. They were afraid. The troopers closed the door of the classroom. The people inside had no idea why they were doing that. However, they didn't suspect anything at all. One old man walked up to the door to open it, because when they closed, it was far too hot inside the room. But he collapsed all of a sudden. His wife tried to walk over to him, up. His wife tried to walk over to help him up, but she also collapsed all of a sudden. Then, other people also started collapsing inside of the room. It was a very odd sight. What would make for a good example? It would be pretty amusing if they were dominoes. However, they are human beings. People sitting by the window watched this strange event happen before their eyes. They opened those eyes wider to try and understand what was going on.
ダム戦争をきっかけに、長き眠りからよみがえった荒ぶる神が、不信心なる者を綿流しの聖夜の旅にたたりを下してゆく。その一年一年の積み重ねが、神の復活、お社様の意向の復活、たたりを恐れるという原始的恐怖への回帰。
The door creaked open slightly, and someone on the other side threw 3 spray canisters into the room. More people started to collapse, even those at the window. This wasn't something that was happening only in one room. It was happening in all the other rooms too. It was happening in all the evacuation centers. People's dreams, their hopes, and their futures were taken away so quickly and easily.
そして誰もがお社様のたたりを疑わなくなり、完全に復活した我は、古きむくろの腹を内より破りて、今こそこの世によみがえる。 お社様の怒りに触れるとき、地獄の釜が開きて正気があふれ出し、人々は逃げることもかなわず、ことごとく生き絶えるなり、その最後の審判が、たたりが、こうして実現した。
There was a commotion in the reception room by the principal's office. Someone had figured out what was going on, broke the seal of the window, and escaped outside. Other people tried to remove the seal on their windows too, but they collapsed in a matter of seconds.
あなたは死んだら何が残る？身は腐り、焼かれ、骨は砕かれ砂になる。大地の肥やしになる以上の何が残せるの？
応接室で脱走発生。4名が窓から脱出。発砲許可。撃て撃て撃て撃て撃て撃て。
The soldiers shot the people who tried to escape in the back. The sound of the gunshots echoed in silence. It was a noise filled with cruelty. They helplessly fell down to the ground. Their deaths were so pitiful compared to the silent deaths of those before them. The residential police officer was one of the escapees. He tried to shoot back at them with his own gun. His shots could be heard throughout the building. The soldiers ducked into the shadows upon hearing the noise. The officer seized his chance and ran towards the gate. But that was just a waste of time. Not only is the range of the automatic weapons they were using longer than the length of the schoolyard, but as trained professionals, it will be nothing for them to shoot him from that distance. The villagers had no choice. Either they die from the gas without realizing what was happening, or they find out about the mission and be killed.
どうした？反撃されたか？応答しろ！
脱走者は全員射殺。銃声は駐在警官が反撃したものです。
射殺隊を回収しろ。一般犠牲者と一緒にしないよう注意せよ。
The soldiers walked over to the 4 fallen bodies. They needed to make sure that they were all dead, not just injured.
私は残した。名を残した。偉業を残した。たたりを残した。私の存在は、この長く封鎖されるこの土地で神格化されるだろう。そして、近隣の町にて今日のたたりを逃れた者たちは、たたりを恐れ、その恐怖を人々に語り継ぐだろう。人間の群れの記憶が、私を超越した存在へ昇華させるのだ。
第一小隊より本部、営林署の滅菌を終了。脱走者4名は射殺。
第二小隊より本部、滅菌終了。脱走者なし。第三小隊より本部、脱走者10名以上。現在相当中。制圧は時間の問題。
第四小隊より本部、滅菌終了。脱走者なし。
第三小隊より本部、脱走者13名、全員の射殺を確認。全員の滅菌を終了。
了解。機密保持部隊の全小隊は確認を厳重に行われたし。
Takano was laughing to herself inside of the van. She didn't physically see all those people dying silently, but she saw it anyway. She saw countless people dying without even noticing it. She saw it all in her mind. Takano waved her arms in the air. No one was watching her, but no one would understand what she was doing even if they were. She was waving her baton. Takano was pretending that she was the conductor of the silent funeral march.
サンサ、滅菌の完全終了を確認。通信妨害を終了しますが、よろしい。
いいわよ。
施設処理部隊より定時連絡。機密搬出と溶接封鎖を完了。現在注水中。
交通封鎖部隊より定時連絡。封鎖線は異常なし。
通信工作部隊より定時連絡。通信妨害を終了。電話施設の現状復帰を開始。
Takano was paying no attention to those reports. She continued to sing the melody of an orchestra. One operator spoke to her.
ご機嫌ですね。
最高に気分がいい夜よ。あなたには聞こえないでしょうね。この新しい神を称える賛歌が。
賛歌でありますか？
Takano laughed loudly, spreading her arms wide.
そうよ。称える歌。神のいなかったこの地に新しい神が誕生した瞬間を称える賛歌よ。このHinamizawaには神などいなかった。お社様という名が残るだけ。神がかつて存在した痕跡が残るだけのただの古ぼけた土地だった。その地に私は再び神を取り戻させたの。どういうことかわかる？わからないでしょうね。今の世界にたたる神が何人いる？人が試すことに耐えられる神が何人いる？一人もいやしない。それを私がたたった。
Takano laughed as if she was the only one who could comprehend what she was saying. None of the operators inside the car could comprehend her laughter. Takano was satisfied to know that.
たたりなきは神にあらず。たたるゆえに恐れられ、恐れられるゆえに崇められる。それこそが神の真実。神が信仰を生み出すのではなく、信仰が神を生み出すのなら、でも太古の神々はたたったのよ。では、神のたたりとは何なのか。それこそが真の神の証だった。語らない神など、人間に見下された神でしかないのよ。神の宿らぬ抜け殻の土地に、神が確かに存在した痕跡を見た私は思ったわ。これは天の啓示だと。ダム戦争が終わるまで、明治から100年にもわたり、Hinamizawaは神を失ってきた。それを私が蘇らせろという神の啓示だと私は思ったわ。そして天は私にありとあらゆる力を貸してくれた。天が与えたわずかの偶然が積もり、芽生えたたたりの芽を私が育てた。育まれたたたりは今や結実し、実をたわわに実らせてくれたわ。そうよ、わかる？つまりは、今宵は収穫祭。お社様の伝説に刻まれた最後の神のたたりの日。この日が訪れたからこそ、お社様の存在は今こそ絶対となる。あなたたちは今はわからなくてもやがて知る。私が成した偉業がどれほどのものか、どれだけ長く語り継がれるか、そして私がどれほどの存在となったのか。神はたたる。そのたたりを私は起こす。今こそ我はお社様のたたりなり。我をあがめよ、たたえよ、そして恐れよ。我が紡ぐはたたりにあらず、死にあらず。我が紡ぐは歴史なり。歴史はたたりを語り、 我が存在を永劫に語り伝えるであろう。我こそはたたりなり、肉でできた身を超越せし者なり。この身がたとえ朽ち果てようとも、我が紡ぎし歴史は永遠に残り続けるであろう。今こそ我は永遠を得たり。我が身を呪えよ人間たち。身が朽ちれば後には何も残せぬ無力さを呪い、そして我が偉大さを知るがいい。我こそはお社様なり、今こそ神の領域に至ったものなり。我は肉体が滅びようとも永遠にこの地で語り継がれるのだ。我はお社様。我こそはお社様のたたり。我をあがめよ。たたえよ。そして恐れよ。我が紡ぐはたたりにあらず、死にあらず。我が紡ぐは歴史なり。歴史はたたりを語り、我が存在を永劫に語り伝えるであろう。我こそはたたりなり。肉でできた身を超越せし者なり。この身がたとえ朽ち果てようとも、我が紡ぎし歴史は永遠に残り続けるであろう。今こそ我は永遠を得たり。我が身を呪えよ人間たち。身が朽ちれば後には何も残せぬ無力さを呪い悔やみ恐れるがいい。そして我が偉大さを知るがいい。我こそはお社様なり。今こそ神の領域に至ったものなり。我は肉体が滅びようとも永遠にこの地で語り継がれて永遠の生を受けるのだ。
Boy, I am shocked. I am shocked beyond belief. The woman that we spent like all this time, like all these chapters, a woman that spoke so creepily and was so obsessed with Oyashiro and the history of Hinamizawa, is now looking at herself as God and has lost her marbles? I am shook beyond belief. Jesus freaking Christ, man. Oh, you know, I guess one of my theories has come true. I guess, well, kinda. I did say that maybe one of the reasons why Takano would do this is because she wanted to make it reality, or something like that, to prove that it is all real, in a way. The fact that she wanted to become God herself, like become Oyashiro herself, that I did not say. But well, I guess I was pretty close, I guess. Jesus Christ. The sickest human that I've seen in a while, for sure. Tips? Okay, I think that we've looked at that. So, okay, back to the Sea of Fragments, I guess. I guess Rika finally managed to assemble all the pieces to her puzzle. But we don't know yet if her memories will pass on to their next life. I mean, let's hope. Rika always loses the memory of her death. I don't know if she can retain the memories of what she's discovered. What did he think? Did he have fun? Once you find out the answers, collecting them isn't so fun anymore. You don't agree? I see. You still might find something different by examining some old fragments. After all, the time we have here is endless. We have to find something to play with, else there's nothing to do here. For me, playing with these fragments stops being fun when I find out what's inside. But if you can tell me how to have fun with them even so, that makes you pretty smart. Well, you want to know what I play with? I don't play. I'm just killing time. Because you're all so freaking bored. I like to imagine what Rika could have done in order to achieve the future she hopes for. I like to imagine a role that would have been happy for all of them. We find out how these roles are set up by looking at the previous ones, right? I like to analyze what would need to change in order for Rika to win against Takano. You want to see what's on my mind? Too bad. I'm not showing that to you. In that world, Rika and her friends survived their stroke and broke through the fate of June 1983. It's just my imagination. It's not for me to share with you. I'm sure the world that Rika is about to create is better than anything in my imagination. Even if she's stuck on June 19th in 1983. I'm sure this now ended world will remain one of Rika's brightest fragments either way. No matter how much she struggles, if she actually overcomes her fate, it'll be the most brilliant fragment of her story. I'm sure the life Rika lives makes for a better story than my boring imagination. You want to know what happened to Rika? She made the decision to redo her life once again with Hanyu. She's trying to live her life with all her might. That's what she learned from this road. And truly, her next life has already begun. I do wonder what that life is like. I ain't going there now to check. I mean, same. Do you want to come with me? Not like I have much of a choice. I mean, what, am I just gonna stop here? Have this be the last of this story? And I'm pretty much satisfied with it? Heck no. Heck no. Alright, well I have like staff room. And then we shall move on. Hi, this is Ryokishi07. Hi Ryokishi. Thank you for playing Higurashi When They Cry Kai. Chapter 7. Minagoroshi. This time around, the scenario was almost like the answer page in a book of riddles. Or maybe the scenario was like a side dish we enjoyed alongside all the scenarios up till now. You can take it how you like. I just hope you enjoyed it. I was very nervous about releasing this scenario, because a mystery is only good when it's still a mystery. This scenario marks the end of that mystery. Yeah, well, usually mysteries will no longer be mysteries. To be honest, I didn't want to release this chapter for a while. However, way too many similar stories are being published with no answers at all. A book of riddles means nothing if there's no answer page in the back. Coming up with an answer when you have no way to see if it's right or not is a little sad, I think. There's a little satisfaction in creating your own answer. Like if the answer is just nowhere to be seen, if there are no answers, you can't get any joy out of reading a book of riddles. I mean, riddles specifically, I can understand that. I regret to see that there are way too many stories out there that don't offer this kind of joy. That's why I decided to release something that you can compare your answer to for this series. Since this world had a rather irregular presentation, there may not have been many people who reached what might be called the right answer. But it's not really about whether your answer was right or wrong. It's much more about how many questions you raised when reading this story and how many answers you were able to find. Thank you all very much for the solutions you sent. They were all wonderful theories, and some were thought out so much more than the actual story that I frequently thought that about making them the right answer. Right laugh. Ah yes, that kind of ping pong. Also, your support has given me courage to finish writing the 7th chapter of the series. Thank you very much for supporting Higurashi. Finally, I would like to apologize about how I portrayed the Child Consultation Center. I don't know what it was like in 1983, but child consultation centers are not mean places like I depicted in my story. I made the characters look so unfeeling, but in reality, the government today is the #1 hero for us civilians. In fact, those involved with child welfare and youth education are all extremely passionate and selflessly devoted people. I mean, this was done to dramatize the story of Satoko, and all that a bit more. Like I like to believe that child consultation centers are able to do things like much better in real life than what we have seen, for sure. I'm sorry for giving them such a negative image in this chapter. Next chapter, Matsuri Bayashi, is going to be the last one of the series. I am overwhelmed by the pressure of writing the last chapter of Higurashi When They Cry, which turned out to be such a long story. Oh yeah, I bet. The longest. I know that this last chapter is going to be a really long one, in terms of number of words and all that, / characters. Hell, like I'm thinking this might be longer than the longest Umineko episode. Jesus. Play Higurashi, they said. Higurashi is much shorter than Umineko, they said. Okay. I hope you'll continue your kind support. Thank you all very much. Alright. Time for the last chapter, folks. See you next time.